And again, I'd like to welcome you. The idea of building a resilient community here in Port Alberni is of prime importance to many of us. There's been a great deal of thought going into it from a number of quarters, a lot of activists discussing, and really when the rubber hits the road, the true sustainability is, at least in large part, consists of people doing business locally, buying locally, producing locally, and generating but ideas within the community. And some people have already started doing that. Thank you, Jason. Mr. Watson.
Thank you for inviting me tonight, Dan. Pleased to be here. I've been accused of being an addict to PowerPoint, and especially complicated graphs and charts. So tonight I vowed to do it without PowerPoint, so I apologize in advance if you were hoping for the graphs and charts. So what Dan asked me to do is just provide an overview, if you like, of what the city has been doing with regard to sustainability over the past few years. And there's quite a number of points on my list here, so I'm going to run through it fairly quickly, and then if there's questions at the end, we'll circle around and answer them on any ones that you particularly are interested in. So I think that the first thing I wanted to remark on was that the City Council did establish a Climate Action Advisory Committee back in 2007, and that was chaired by then Councillor Charles Mealy, and I think there may even be some people that were also on that committee in the room tonight. And that committee provided a 7-step action plan that Council did endorse. And we have been keeping that as a kind of touchstone document. We have achieved some of those things, not all of them, and we're still working on the ones that we haven't. One of the things I noticed from that plan was transition towns, which is this group was mentioned, and we did in fact send some of our staff and I think some other people in the community for some transition town training early on in the process. One of the other things that was recommended that was a sustainability forum in the community, which we did back in 2009, invited a speaker named Bruce Sampson, who was a very good speaker, kind of the Al Gore variety, I suppose, and I think he was probably speaking a bit to the choir, but he did speak very eloquently and persuasively about climate change, and there were some questions at the end from people that were really still doubters about climate change, whether it really was an actual event or not, and I think that was valuable in the community for people that still had some questions in their mind about that. We've also taken an opportunity to do some peer exchange with our staff and other municipalities in British Columbia about sustainability, which was another recommendation of the committee. Shortly after that committee concluded its work, we signed an MOU with an organization called the International Center for Sustainable Communities, which we did some research on and thought was an excellent organization, and it's multinational. We've signed a protocol agreement with them, which has a number of commitments of things that we're going to work towards, and that's another document that we are keeping up on the bulletin board and working our way through those commitments. One of the things that organization facilitated for us is undertaking a community sustainability assessment report, which a young lady named Amber Zernhelt came to Port Alberni, and some of you may have had a chance to speak with her. She did a community resource assessment of our ability to move towards sustainability. Quite an interesting document, and if anyone's interested, I can certainly provide that for you. Amber has moved on and is now the sustainability coordinator in Campbell River, which I envy Campbell River having one of those. But anyway, moving on. We, like a number of municipalities in British Columbia, signed the BC Climate Action Change Charter, which was a partnership with the province of British Columbia and contains a number of points that we have committed to move towards. The one that I think is the most challenging and got the most press is that we will strive to be carbon neutral by 2012. Now, talking to other municipalities, and there's over 170 of them that have made these commitments, nobody's on track for that. But it's a commitment. Now, there's a way you can be carbon neutral, and it just involves buying carbon credits. But that's not the intention. We want to be carbon neutral on our own. So, another commitment that we have made. In 2010, internally, we undertook an assessment to find out what our greenhouse gas inventory is. And I think that was a natural first step. You need to know, before you can measure how many greenhouse gases you've reduced, how many did we have to begin with. So we completed that in-house with an estimate for our corporation and also an estimate for the community at large. So we have those figures in hand, and I can share those with you if you like. So all of that I just talked about is things that we've talked about, we've committed to, we've studied, but what have we actually done? I guess someone might want to know. So I have a list of things that are more nuts and bolts that we've actually done, and I'll go through that quickly. When we did our greenhouse gas inventory, it was clear that most of our greenhouse gas emissions are through our buildings. I'd say 60-some-odd%, and then about maybe 30-some-odd% fleet, and then some other things. But buildings are our main user of energy and so a creator of greenhouse gas emissions. So we've done quite a few upgrades to buildings. The multiplex, we have upgraded the lighting in the multiplex with better efficiency fixtures. It provides a higher level of lighting, which is good for Bulldogs games and U17 type tournaments, and also is an energy saving upgrade. So that was a benefit both on cost savings, greenhouse gas savings, and a better product. We have changed all of our traffic signals in the community to LEDs, and thanks to our friends from BC Hydro for assisting with that. That was one of their product upgrade initiatives that we took advantage of. And we're keeping a close eye on street light upgrades for some similar product upgrades, because that's the single biggest electric use that we have is the street lights in our community. Having said that, we did some streetlight upgrades in the uptown when we did the streetscape improvements that you noticed. We got rid of those extremely ugly 1960s, 70 vintage streetlights uptown and put in some more attractive. Well, not only are they more attractive, they're much more energy efficient. So some savings there, also greenhouse gas reductions. Probably the biggest savings undertaking we've done is at the Aquatic Center. We completely upgraded the heating, venting, cooling at the Aquatic Center. And it was original equipment to the 1967 construction. And the solution to humidity in the pool was to eject all that hot air out into the air. So now we have heat exchangers, and that is a project that was a very expensive project, but it does save quite a bit of energy, will pay for itself in a relatively short term, and again, reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Similarly, the fire hall, we have undertaken a HVAC upgrade at the fire hall, which reduces the energy consumption of that building. Now, this one's a bit controversial. We have reduced the solid waste tonnages that we take to the landfill. Now, that's in partnership with our friends at the Regional District, who have brought into our community Blue Box recycling program, which facilitated the city saying to people, we're not going to take as much garbage from your house as we used to take. And so we have reduced by about 27% since 2008 the amount of garbage that we haul to the landfill, which reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. This isn't the standard crowd that couple of other projects that I wanted to talk about. One is a small partnership. We took a small partnership role in the Oopnit Run of the River Power project, which was a Hoopachesit project that took place on the China Creek, in the China Creek watershed, and that's how we got interested, because that's where our water comes from. So we were very interested in that project, and at the end of the day said, yes, this is a good project, and we did some in-kind, primarily things to support that project, and ended up with a 5% share of that project. And it's a small, relatively small run of the river power project, but it generates enough power, if it was directly connected to the city, to power about a third of the residential homes in town. So it's significant enough power in that regard. The other project that we've been working on that can reduce greenhouse gases, and I hope that we'll be able to take credit for that, is our community forest. So we will be just started to start harvesting operations in our community forest this year, and of course that means we'll be planting small trees which sequester more carbon than big trees, and we're still talking with the province about whether they're going to let us take credit for that or not, since the land belongs to them, but we have a license to harvest. Regardless of whether we can take credit for it or not, we know that it will be happening as we move forward in that project. So that's, I think, the highlights of the things that we have done. Did I miss any? Nope. Well, we're still planning to do some additional building upgrades. As I said, that's our biggest greenhouse gas emission area. City Hall and Echo Center are the next two buildings lined up for greenhouse gas or for HVAC upgrades. Now we're also working on a very interesting and I think will be a very profitable and greenhouse gas emission reducing project if it comes to fruition. It's called a district energy system, which we're working on the planning stages of with a consultant by the name of Stephen Salter, who's an expert in that kind of technology. And basically what it would be is a biomass burning facility located somewhere in the vicinity of the catalyst mill using waste product from our industrial waterfront that would create hot water, and that would be circulated to high energy using facilities in our community like the hospital and schools and our pool and things like that. And that energy that's created by burning that wood waste replaces other energy sources that are currently used like natural gas primarily in most of those facilities. So that's something that's in the planning stages. We're pursuing a partnership with Catalyst hopefully, although there is a Plan B where we can do it on our own as well. So we'll see how that planning process works out. We are still working with the International Center for Sustainable Cities on a number of initiatives. One of which is they've asked us if we'd like to be a pilot municipality along with Calgary to have some training with regard to developing capacity for leadership in our organization. So we're looking forward to that training happening relatively soon. And we're talking with them about a framework for moving forward in our sustainability process, and we're looking at something that Tom Weger mentioned, the natural step process, as the front runner, I would say, in that framework selection. So that's it in a nutshell, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions about anything that caught your interest. All right. Thanks, Dan. No questions? Okay. Stephen. We're not allowed to have questions?
No. We're going to have the questions individually later on.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
We'll give our speaker has a chance to speak first. Ms. Connolly from the Regional District.